Hello and welcome to another, or rather, third episode of Let's Talk Men. I know it has been a huge gap for the last few months after a second episode, maybe a year. But from now on, we will be having a lot of episodes about, talking about different aspects of men's mental health. So let me get on to our discussion about the third episode and who will be the guest for a third episode. So let me introduce to our guest. Elysia Buss. Now, Elysia is originally from Seattle, Washington, but now resides in Charlottesville, Virginia. She's a transformation coach, equal rights and men's rights advocate, YouTube host, and medical massage therapist. She has an amazing partner who has published a children's book and is on his mission to empower children worldwide. Her life is full and fulfilling as she strives to empower a billion people over the next 40 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into a conversation with our next guest, Elysia Buss.
Buttons. Okay, got it. Continue as Elysia. Do, 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 do. Oh, so my just here, da, da, da. Here, hold on. Here we go. Setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. Do, 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 do,
Right.
do, do. Okay, let's have some fun.
Meeting is now streaming live. Nice. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Elysia, thank you for coming to my podcast channel and thank you for taking out time. Let's
Very well.
dive into some good, amazing conversation about, men's mental health and what all things, we think that men are facing and how they can cope up with it. So, before
Yeah.
I start, I wanted to know how did this journey of yours begin, for men's coaching? What made you or what triggered you to get into this?
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation piece. Before 2020, I had never thought about working with men. Aside from being a teacher and like working with boys, in elementary, middle school. So I went to college for 10 years to become an educator. But yeah, so the pandemic happened and I started talking to people all around the world in partnership with horses and how they were helping people from all walks of life. And it seems like a lot of people didn't understand what we did with horses. And so I decided to start a YouTube channel of my own, Horsepower Empowerment Through Connection. And one of the men that I interviewed, Jake LaRue, he's a former Marine, a veteran, an incredible man who works in partnership with horses. And he wanted to vulnerably share his story for the first time on a public forum of being committed of domestic assault and battery in his journey of redemption with horses. And I thought that that was really powerful. And I felt honored that he felt safe enough to work with me and have that conversation, hold that space for him. And after the recording was done for the interview, he said to me, I really wish I had a group of guys I could talk to about masculinity. And I was like, wow, I think that was a really powerful statement, especially coming from such a strong personality who had been through so much in life. And so I was like, well, I just like downloaded and I'm like, why didn't I host a men's summit? And he was like, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing. And I said, okay, well, if I'm going to host a men's summit, then obviously we need to have a men's group. And I'm not great at doing anything small. So I'm like, okay, if we're going to do a men's summit, then I wanted cultural representation from every continent because I think having a cultural perspective is really important, especially in the United States where we talk about diversity and inclusion a lot. Yet we don't oftentimes bring in that cultural perspective from other countries. And we're looking at people as humans because that's like no matter where we are in the world, we often struggle with very similar, just basic human needs and desires and struggles. So I did that and I had men of color, I had men with different like disabilities, different just sexual preferences, millionaires, Hollywood producers, obviously veterans and men who worked with horses and different things. And it was so amazing to watch these men come together from literally all over the world and treat each other like brothers, as true equals. And it was such a profound experience for me to get to have. And I was the only woman on it. I didn't allow any other women to come on to the platform for the summits because I think it's really important for men to have their own space that's sacred for them to talk about the things that they're struggling with, just like it's important for women to have that space. And for people who, are non-binary and whatnot, to have their own space as well to talk about it. Because I think there's absolutely a place where we have diversity and inclusion and get to bring all the people together. But I think it's equally important for us to be able to honor that sometimes there is a time and a place for us just to be around those people that we also identify with and we feel safe with.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed this a lot in even in India and around the world, Asia, European countries, or even in Western countries. Men find it very hard to have certain safe spaces, to express themselves, to show their vulnerabilities. And I think it's
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
rare that they find something like this. In fact, they hardly have any such. So, do you think it is coming back, or is it uh, eroding the safe spaces? Will it be hard for them to find in the future? Because they already think it's very hard to find a safe space.
My honest answer is a yes and. I think that safe spaces have been eroding for men with the rise of different people like having more like voices. And I want women to have more voices and get to rise up in power because I advocate for equal rights and like men's rights. I always put the equal rights first because I think it's important for us to look at all of like humanity equally. Um, so there's become this really unfortunate imbalance of how men are being treated. And there's a lot of fear that, like, just fear mongering in general, I think that's occurring and putting people down, which is unfortunate. And it's important for people to speak their truth on both sides and still be able to manage it and not put everybody in a box. So, for instance, like I have been sexually assaulted by men, plural, and yet I still advocate for men because it's so important for us to not put people in a box just because we've experienced trauma at the hands of them.
Yeah.
And so, and on the flip side, for the yes and, is that I have seen an incredible and beautiful rise of empowerment from holding space safely for men over the last 5 years since I have entered this space. Like, I know men's like coaches literally around the world and doing different work. And so you have like the Sacred Sons that started here in the United States who have become internationally known, which is really cool at the work. There's a lot of men down in Australia that are coming together. I always think of Australia as a more of like a rough and tumble sort of place. And so it's really been beautiful to watch men coming forward in that regard. And if anybody is searching for men's groups, they can definitely reach out to me and I can connect them to an area that has them. Like you have the Mankind Project that's been going on for a very long time. Jed Diamond was one of the founders of men's group here in the United States. And I always forget if it's that one or the other one. There's been so many. I don't remember them off the top of my head, unfortunately, but it has been really beautiful to watch that evolution and come together. It is still kind of like herding mountain lions, though, trying to get men together. And I hear that from men's coaches that are male, as well as the very small amount that I've run across that are female.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I saw a couple of females apart from you doing that, but I think there are a lot of initiatives being taken up, like the Mankind Project, and there's another guy, Connor Beaton, who's taking up initiatives to help men out, just like you and many others. Talking about the fear that you mentioned, considering the fear, is it impacting the confidence in men? I mean, these days we see a lot of men losing the confidence even for a basic conversation with any woman or even their colleagues. So how do you think that can be addressed?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of men over the last 5 years who feel damned if they do and damned if they don't with women. The conversation is often that they really do want to support the women in their lives, their partners, their friends, their colleagues. But when they bring up the conversation, I don't know if they're just bumbling it or like what's happening, or if as women we have just experienced so much at the hands of men that we're just like already on our back foot defensive and like cranky. We're like, roar, you know? And so I think that it really comes down to just like breathing and dropping into your authentic self and your intention, right? And listening to your intuition. We get really distracted with the busyness of life, the buzzing all around us, the screens in front of us, and it makes people disconnect from their bodies. It makes it harder for you to listen to your intuition and read the nonverbal communication that's coming from the person in front of you, right? I think the biggest thing with confidence is actually checking your ego,
Right.
right? It's not about you. It's
Mm.
about being curious about the person that's in front of you without feeling the need to be manipulative about it. Just like really seeing like, hey, like who are you? And like what are you interested in? And because you need to know what your values are as a person so you can identify in casual conversation if the person in front of you resonates, is in alignment with your values, whether or not you want that person to be a lover, a friend, a business partner, like that's where oftentimes the quote unquote toxicity comes from, is us pushing ourselves into places where we are in misalignment and that we're feeling a lack of confidence and security with ourselves. And so we're just like, okay, well, I want this person to like me, right? And then they try to act a little bit maybe too confident, but that's not authentic, right? And so that comes off in a way to us as ladies that's like, that's discord. Like I don't necessarily know why I don't like the way that person's communicating with me, but it just doesn't feel great, right? Because we're intuitive creatures.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, for
So,
everyone who are watching it live and everyone who are listening and those who are going to listen and watch it later on, let me tell you, Alicia has started a page called as Global Resources for Men. And we have a group on Facebook for men to have a safe space to express themselves. And thanks to Alicia, we have started another chapter, that is India chapter for Global Resources of Men, where people from India and around can join in, express their thoughts, vulnerabilities, talk about what they feel. So yes, it's a great initiative, Alicia, what you're doing, and
thank
very
you.
brave of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's interesting that you say from the standpoint of being brave, because over the last 5 years, I have gotten very little pushback from men or from women. I think I've really only had two women that have been just like, oh, like you're advocating for men? That's awful. I'm like, maybe you should go to therapy because they're people too. And that's something for you to like figure out. Um, Not in like a mean sort of way, but and I've only had a couple men remarkably give me pushback for being a woman that's advocating for men. And they're just like, who the heck do you think you are to tell men like what to do? And I'm not here to tell men what to do from the standpoint of like how to be a man. Like I'm here to hold that safe space for men to feel like they can be messy, right? Like because we're all just trying to figure stuff out. And we're going to make mistakes, but if we can give people grace while also having healthy boundaries, I think that's part of where the confidence really comes in. To answer your question, is like, how can you be confident? Is just like love yourself, know your worth, and honor that everyone around us has worth. And every person, every human being that we interact with for seconds or decades has something to teach us, right? And that confidence, that knowingness that you can discern what kind of people are healthiest for you to be around, both for what you can contribute to their lives, as well as being able to receive what they can contribute to yours, is what creates really beautiful relationships and confidence that you can have for yourself, but also creating space for other people to confidently interact with you authentically.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think even as we all are, who are coaches who are entering or entered men's mental health, we all had one or two cases of pushback. Even I had few cases of pushback where I was told by few men, we don't need coaching. That's how we are built. That's how our DNA is. We don't express. So I think it's a part of our job. We can say that, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think that a lot of men that I've spoken to think that women aren't interested in supporting them. Some men have never experienced true support from a woman. They haven't had that modeled for them. Women that hold space for them to like feel weaker, right?
Yeah.
We're human. We all have our moments of feeling weak. These ideas that I've seen floating out there that if men show weakness in front of women, that they are no longer valued, they are no longer seen as being able to be protectors. Um, and that's really unfortunate,
Yeah.
right? But so many of the women that I've spoken to, they're so grateful for the work that I'm doing. They're so grateful to hear that more spaces are being created for men to be able to step into and have that safety held for them and have them meet other men who are having those same conversations so that they don't see, and they can see that they're not alone in the struggles that they're having, right? And for it to be modeled for women too, to just be like, hey, like these are different ways where we can support our men so that they can come to us vulnerably. And we're not going to be like, well, you're stupid and a piece of shit. Like, you're not like, get it together, suck it up. Like, you need to show up for our family. You need to show up for me. Instead of just being like, hey, like, we're a team. And sometimes I'm going to have my irrational moments and this is how I would like to be treated when I'm having my irrational moments, right? Like as women, like we don't like being called crazy, right? Like, who likes to be called crazy? I
Nobody.
don't know.
Nobody.
You know what I mean, right? Like, it's like, no, it's like, okay, if you're acting quote unquote crazy, then your bandwidth is probably gone because you've had enough things happen over the course of your day or week or month or year that you're just maxed out.
Yeah.
And the tiniest little thing that drops is a trigger or something that normally would be fine to be said in a relationship, you're just done. And you're going to act irrationally and say something or do something that is probably less than ideal.
Yeah.
Right. Um, this
Yeah.
is different than if things become a pattern. I just want to put that
Yes.
out there, right? Like we're not looking at things that are a
Yeah.
pattern that create domestic,
Right.
like assault, violence,
Yes.
like emotional abuse. This is not what we're talking about. And like, let's be clear. If those things are happening, then I absolutely advocate for like getting the support that you need and healthy boundaries and all of those sorts of things. But I just mean like in general, right? Like you have a moment, right? Like the men in our lives have moments too. And so I'm 44 years old and I was raised with that old adage of do unto others as you would like others to do unto you. And I think that it would be really beautiful as human beings if we could try and step into that a little bit more, but also understand as a caveat, not everybody's going to want to be treated the way you want to be treated.
Yeah,
Because some
absolutely.
of us can treat ourselves pretty shittily, right? If we treat ourselves poorly, like that internal narrative, the things that we do, those limiting beliefs and the lack of boundaries and people pleasing. So it's just like it becomes a conversation.
Yeah,
I'm
I
a bit
mean,
rambling this morning. Sorry guys, I haven't finished my coffee.
no worries. I think the narrative has come from ages, because the way we've been brought up as men, the way the stigma lies, that's how the narrative has been built. And it has
Right.
been ingrained in our consciousness, unconsciousness, and that's how we have started acting. So
Yeah.
I think it's also somewhere that the part that judgment follows and makes you crazy, isn't it? So the fear of being judged, or if someone
Yeah.
judges you as a man, I think that
Hmm.
puts you in a place where you become more crazier, or you are desperate enough to get attention, isn't it?
It it's really hard because our society, and I would assume that this is probably true in India as well, but please do correct me if I'm wrong, is that society tells us that if we fail at anything, that we're terrible human beings.
Yeah,
We're
they
we're
always justify.
stupid.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that that fear of failure in relationships and that if we approach somebody and we're rejected, that we're a failure, we're not good enough, that we fail in business, that um, people think that we don't have value. Um, and that's a really unfortunate misconception because without putting yourself out there and potentially failing, you don't grow.
Yeah.
You don't get to discover the things that are beautiful, innate strengths and talents within you, right? The failure, as as silly as it sounds, because we see it all over the place, it really is the building blocks of success. And
Yep.
that's why when I coach people, like one of the things that I coach them on is how to healthily navigate rejection, how to both say no to people and to be able to receive the answer of no with grace and understanding without then projecting onto another person like, oh well, like you said this and you said no, and that's, you're not actually, you don't understand, or like you're stupid, or like you're mean, or like whatever narrative we want to throw on it, instead of just being like, okay, like thanks so much for telling me, and just moving on with your day and be like, okay, great, like I know that that no is no longer a place that I'm putting energy, that's not a resource I'm going to look towards, like that's, and people we love and respect can say no, and we can also just allow time to pass and we can both evolve, and maybe you come back and sometimes it's a yes. So like a really simple thing, an example would be about a year ago I went to Planet Fitness and I asked them if they would let me do massage,
Mhm.
because that's my other job.
Yeah.
Very different from the transformation and flirting
You're
coaching that
also a
I do over
massage
here.
therapist. Yes.
Very different. Okay, we don't cross streams here. So I went to Planet Fitness. I asked them if I could do massage there. They said no. A year passes and I went back to the gym and I listened to my intuition and I asked again, hey, could I come here and do massage? And they said, yeah, actually, that would be great. We just corporate changed the rules like 2 days ago, and now we get to partner with local businesses,
That's awesome.
right? Thanks. And then I went there and I gave massage and I got a couple clients. I got a coaching client. I got a couple massage clients. Like it was great. And transformation coaching, not flirting coaching. Again, separate streams. And so that's just goes to show like the importance of being able to gracefully accept the answer of no, and also listen to your intuition if and when there's time for you to come back and ask something again, once more, without pressure, without expectations, but rather grace and acceptance of no, and the willingness to have them be like, oh no, like we're still not doing that. And I could have seen that as failure. Oh, they don't like me. They don't want to be, but it's all about the mindset with the value we put on things.
Yeah, I think this has become a very common pattern in men. When they see failure, they just go back into the shell. And again, with the fear of failure, they go back into the comfort zone. They don't want to move out. They don't want to explore, just because what people will think, what society will think, what others would think. I think that has taken over men and stopped them from taking risks in life.
Yeah,
But then,
definitely. I'm laughing at myself because I'm remembering a time that I was rejected recently.
oh,
Um, yeah, I know. Amazing. Amazing that ever happens with this amazing face. Being very, very silly. My boyfriend's watching. It's lovely. So uh about like, oh gosh, maybe 3 months ago, I
Mhm.
was at this coffee shop I oftentimes go to, and there was this man that was very handsome. He was in the middle of the meeting. I'm a little bit silly sometimes. I like to just interrupt meetings for people and give them random compliments. It's very entertaining for me, especially for men, because I feel like men don't get enough like authentic confident like
Very
compliments.
true, very
So I
true.
walked up to this guy and I told him that I thought he was handsome and I hoped he had a nice day. He was not wearing a wedding ring or anything like that. And he was like, thank you, and was very polite. And I left and I had been having coffee with one of my girlfriends. And I was like, God, that guy just seemed really nice and cool. I think I'm going to be cool. So I had left the building and I walked back into the building to ask this guy if he'd like to hang out sometime. He was very polite. And he said, oh, like, thank you, but like, I'm actually like, I'm engaged. And it took so much for me in that moment, even if, like, as confident as I am, to breathe. I was still very polite. I was like, hey, like, congratulations. That's so awesome. Like, I love it when people like find their people. And that is an authentic comment from me. It
Yes.
really is. But I'm sure I was very flushed and actually blushing in that moment, something that does not happen to me very often. And I kept my posture upright and I was like, thanks. Okay, guys. my voice probably like raised a couple notches and he just like pitched. And I gracefully like walked back to my car and I was like, oh, that was fun.
Nice.
That was absolutely rejection.
Yes, yes. But then I think,
Handled with grace.
yeah, absolutely something very commendable. But then
Thank you.
how do you think men can be authentic when it comes to like this, because many times when you get rejected, again, they may take it personally and and may react or may get triggered. But then with that fear of being judged, how can men be more authentic?
It's got to be like a duck.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. Yeah, you just gotta be like a duck. You have to let it like roll off like water off a duck's back. Just be like, I'm not going to let this permeate me. Like this doesn't have to be about me. As long as when you approach people, regardless of gender identification, if you do so with kindness and really pay attention to the energy that you're holding within, um, it should be okay. Like I've witnessed other women and how men approach them, and if any person I think is really firm towards you in their no, be thankful for that no.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, don't take it personally. Understand that that person is not meant for you in that moment. And oftentimes it has nothing to do with you or your approach.
Exactly.
And if somebody gets triggered, this is like a broad statement, right? Like because there are definitely people on either side of the fence, male or female, who approach somebody, um, more often men, let's just be real about it, in a way that is kind of aggressive and too much, right? And it just feels icky, right? But if it triggers us, right, like it's our responsibility to look at that trigger. And as long as somebody's not doing you physically harm, right? Like taking the time and really being like, oh, that person just gave me a gift, which I know it can seem like radical thinking, both for the person who's like, oh, that didn't feel good because I am getting rejected and I don't like that feeling, or the other person who's like, oh, I didn't like how that was approaches. Um, it's a gift when we see our triggers because those are places inside of us for us to heal. And as we heal those, it helps us to be more confident. It helps us to be more authentic. Um, and just do the work. All of us, it's a never ending process for us to be able to go and do as much work so that we can be our best selves. And that's why I think knowing like how to refill our cup when we do get triggered so we can get back to neutral as soon as possible is such an important skill to have.
Yeah, I mean, what you say, be like a duck. I would say be like a boat.
Like,
So let it flow through you. Whatever is the negative thing or whatever is the trigger, let it flow through you. Hold only what is positive or what helps you out. Right?
it's also about like not that toxic positivity, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes like it's so important for all of us to be able to experience the full range of human emotion, and especially men to be able to say it's okay for me to be sad or frustrated or like let down or weak. Or it's also wonderful for men to get to feel exuberant and like joyful like a little kid, and like love and all of those different things, and like in grief, like create that experience so that like allowing, like you said, to move through you. It's about how we channel the energy.
Yes.
Like
Exactly.
experiencing rage is important to be able to experience because that is the reasonable thing to experience when you witness injustice.
Yep.
Anger and rage are like those, it's not that the emotions are dangerous, it's that some people have never been taught how to channel it in a healthy way so it does not become dangerous. And I think that is a very important differentiation for us to have and to create those spaces where men are allowed to feel rage and anger, and that we don't damn it and we don't tell women that they're crazy or irrational when we feel rage and anger, right? Like it's about teaching all of us how to healthfully harness it and move it. Just like having a tremendous amount of sexual energy is like doesn't need to be bad for men or for women, right? It doesn't mean that a man is dangerous just because he has a lot of sexual energy.
Yeah.
But if it's not channeled healthily and he's not taught like how to honor boundaries and have conversations about consent, then yes, it can become dangerous.
That's an
I think we just
amazing
need to normalize those conversations. Sorry, go ahead.
that's an amazing thing you just mentioned, because I coach men for channeling their anger, and nobody has said something amazing like this. You have beautifully put it. Because it's important,
Thank you.
I mean, the way men are projected or put up on pedestal, that yeah, it's a man thing to be angry, but then anger is taken in a very wrong way. Men destroy things, men break things, men break relationships, or even the physical violence they do, just because you're angry. And it is put up on a pedestal that man, if it's a man, he can be angry. And it's very important to channel the rage. Nobody talks about channeling it. Everybody talks about expressing it. It's very dangerous if
Yeah.
it's just expressed rather than channeled, right?
Yeah. It's a nuanced difference because we should be able to express the full range of human emotions, right?
Yeah,
But channeling it in a way that's healthy and discovering what that looks like for you because it looks different for everybody,
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah,
right? And it's not about judging anyone else's experience of how they channel it,
right.
but is it important to be able to communicate to people what you're there for, right? Because you could have two friends that love to spar, right? That's something that they enjoy, male or female. I definitely know some amazing female fighters, like in Muay Thai and like jujitsu and all those different things. Um, but honoring that. And those two people can go, they're like, I've had a really bad day. I'm really effing angry right now. And I want to go spar. And their buddy's like, let's go. Right. But you talk to another friend who's not into that at all. Right. They're just like, no, that sounds terrifying. Maybe that person's way of channeling their rangers, they're like, I want to go play my drums, or I
Yeah,
want to go paint, or like, I want to drive. Like, I used to, like, I love to go play pool and just like hit pool balls really hard, or go drive my sports car in a way that's safe. Or, like, there's so many different things, right? It's kind of like how we process.
I think it
Yeah,
depends from person to person how you channel the rage. Like, there was a time when I
sure.
used to channel the rage through my practice of martial arts. I did a lot of martial arts, different martial arts as I grew up. Then recently, when there is a rage, I try to go for a swim. I do a lot of swimming in the morning. So I try to do some swimming in the morning to channel my rage. So it not only helps me to channel it, but reduces my stress, exercises my body. So it's a healthy way of
Yeah,
channeling it.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it depends from person to person, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also the ability to receive nurturing,
Yes.
right? And not confusing nurturing with sex. Because I think that's also a conversation that we don't have nearly often enough. And it's not modeled for men, especially of how to ask for nurturing.
Yeah.
What does that look like from person to person? How do we ask for it? How do we model it for children? Um, because if we don't model that, then people start getting confused. And when people actually desperately need nurturing, then they end up pushing too hard for sex
There's
because they're
no
just like, I just
proper,
need touch and connection.
yeah, there's no proper nurturing, there's no proper guidance. So, you just jump into it without anything, and then we all know what happens.
Right. And then things sometimes end up getting forced and confused. And because we don't have communication, that's
Yeah.
like people feel uncomfortable and they feel uncomfortable asking for what they want in the bedroom because people have different sexual tastes.
Yep.
And that's another part of the whole like building confidence is like knowing what you want and what you don't
Yep. I think
and
that's
letting
where,
all
it's,
of it be okay.
yeah, I think that's where communication comes in. That's where accountability comes in, right? Where you need to talk to each other as a partner or a couple, what you're looking for, or maybe hold each other accountable for certain things, which is completely missing these days, in relationships or anything.
Yeah, and really just in general, like being mindful of where other people are at and letting go of expectations and control, and rather just articulating your needs, your desires, and your boundaries. Like I talk to people about that a lot because I feel that expectations are the bedrock of resentment. This is where it starts. And it's more just like, and that's where accountability is. It's just like, these are my needs, these are my desires, these are my boundaries, and this is what's going to happen if you cross them. It's just super simple. It's just like a math problem, like 2 + 2 is 4. Like, I don't expect you to do this. This is what is needed and wanted. And if these things don't happen, then this is going to be the result. No expectations needed, just is.
That's it. Very clear.
You choose.
Yeah.
Very clear. Like you have the autonomy to choose how you are going to step into this. And we can have a conversation moving forward because sometimes, like you're working through old patterns or whatever, and you can have grace, but you need to understand like where you're at, right? What you have the threshold and willingness to experience and the runway you're willing to give somebody, like you have this much
Ah,
time to like handle your shit
exactly.
and get it together before we're done.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very true.
But that's the whole accountability and mindfulness is sexy. Like it is. Like so many women that I talk to, and absolutely myself included in this statement, is that like accountability is sexy. Like so many men that I've spoken to over the years, the issues that I've had with men is that they weren't willing to own the things that they did that weren't ideal. Like things that I talked about and I'm like, hey, this is what I need. And they like skirted around it, or they made a mistake that I would have been more than happy to, like let go and work through or whatever. But if somebody's just going to dance around an issue or double down on it, then you're just going to reduce the level of attraction that I have to you and the level of interest that I have in engaging with you. But if you're accountable, like straight off the bat, and you can have the like that much what I would consider an aspect of mature masculinity, which is being able to be like, yep, I messed up. I'm sorry. Like, and this is what I'm going to do to make amends. And this is what I'm going to do for myself to look at the root of the cause of why it happened to begin with. And these are the things that I'm going to do to take action to make myself a better person so I can show up more for myself in alignment with who I choose to be and the values I choose to work out from. And by default, that will make our relationship better. Right.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's super hot.
That's missing as
That's
well.
super, super sexy. And that's what's missing from like most of the interactions with men that
Exactly.
I see out there. I'm like, hey guys, like I know that you don't want to like own it when you make mistakes because nobody wants to be considered a failure. Nobody wants to
Exactly.
think that they're stupid. But I promise the faster you can like rip that band-aid off and just own it, the sexier the ladies are going to think that you are and the better chance you're going to have on the dates that you go on.
I mean, it's being vulnerable, but at the same time being mature,
Yeah, the mature
authentic.
aspect of things. And it's the same thing for the ladies too. It's like it's important for us also to own our mistakes and be able to make amends and hold that space of grace and communicate things. It's just about being human. Like we are not going to make it through this life without making mistakes, without failing, and without just like bumbling through things. So the faster we can just own it and be like, that doesn't devalue me because I made mistakes. It actually increases your value in regards to how you choose to handle them. Like that's how you decide what your character is.
Exactly.
Like to me, that's what defines like true like failure, right? Like, are you going to just completely sweep it under the carpet? And you are choosing to make yourself small, or are you going to own that that's something that like you made a mistake and you're like, no, that doesn't make me less. I can change. I can identify that and I can do better.
But if you sweep it under the carpet, eventually it's gonna grow out into a bubble, and that bubble bursts
Yeah,
in the
those aren't very
form of,
good pillows.
yeah, and then it bursts in the form of anger.
Super bumpy.
Exactly, it's something it's very difficult to handle. Yeah, yeah. I think we should also
For sure.
Yeah, considering the time constraint, we should also have an episode two because this discussion is never going to end.
So many good discussions. Yeah, for the gentlemen out there, I understand it's hard sometimes to, or a lot of the time, to talk to women. I understand that it can seem like there's just so many ways that we're struggling in life as like human beings, and that there aren't a lot of places that you can be yourself. But if you don't see other men modeling for you who it is that you want to be, that gives you the opportunity to become the model that you want others to see and be there for.
Thank you so
We all
much.
have a choice,
Absolutely. We
and
all
you
do
have the
have
power.
this. And we have a power. Exactly. Thank you so much, Alicia. It was a wonderful conversation. And thank you for
Thank
taking out
you.
time for us. And
You're welcome.
we should definitely get on another episode to discuss more things about men.
That would
Thank
be
you.
lovely. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And thank you and have a great day.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Until next time, everybody, we'll see you later. Oh, and come find me at ElysiaBuss.com
Yep.
or globalresourcesformen.com.
Absolutely. I'll put those two websites in the link below this video.
Sounds good.
All
Bye,
right.
everybody.